Threnody War Chief Vexthon stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at the blue planet before him. Earth looked small and harmless, but Vexthon had not brought 300 warships to fight something harmless. "Scan the planet again," he ordered his weapons officer. "Sir, the scans show the same results as before. Primitive technology, chemical rockets, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Their strongest ship has the firepower of our smallest patrol craft." Vexthon's forearms moved restlessly. The Threnody were natural warriors. They had fought wars across the galaxy for thousands of years. They understood power and weakness. But something about this situation felt wrong. If humans are so primitive, how did they make an entire Velkari system vanish? Vexthon asked. His tactical officer, a younger Threnody named Kexmore, spoke up. Perhaps the humans had help from another species. Or maybe they found some ancient weapon. Then where is this weapon now? Vexthon demanded. Why haven't they used it against us? On Earth, General Han Seok-jin was watching the alien fleet through his command center's main display. 300 ships hung in space around Earth like deadly metal clouds. "Sir, they're not attacking," reported Tactical Officer Bae Ji-hoon. "They've been in position for 6 hours, but they haven't fired a single shot." General Han studied the enemy formations. "They're positioned defensively, like they're afraid of us." "Afraid of us?" Bae looked confused. "Sir, they have 300 ships. We have 12. "I know what I can count," General Han said. "But look at their positions. They're spread out to minimize damage if we attack them. They're keeping their main ships far from Earth. Those are not the actions of an attacking force." Captain Lee Dae-ho was aboard the Soul's Pride with Commander Kim Tae-woo. They were flying patrol missions around Earth, watching the alien fleet carefully. "Commander, I want to try something," Lee said. "Take us closer to one of their ships." Kim looked worried. "Sir, that could be seen as an aggressive action. Or it could give us information." "Do it." The Soul's Pride moved slowly toward a Threnody cruiser. As they got closer, both ships began scanning each other. "Captain, look at this," Kim said, pointing to his sensor display. "Their ship is backing away from us." "What?" "Every time we get closer, they move farther away. They're maintaining a constant distance." Lee frowned. "Why would they do that?" Before Kim could answer, a communication signal came from the Threnody ship. "Human vessel, maintain your current distance. Do not approach closer than 10,000 kilometers." Lee activated the communication system. "This is Captain Lee of the Earth Defense Force. Why are you limiting our approach distance?" There was a long pause before the Threnody responded. "Our safety protocols require a minimum distance from your species." "Safety protocols?" Another pause. "We have standing orders to avoid close contact with dimensional anomalies." Lee and Kim looked at each other. "Did he just call us dimensional? Anomalies?" Kim asked quietly. Meanwhile, Dr. Park Min-ae was working in her laboratory studying the data they had recovered from the Velkari research station. Engineer Oh Seon-ho was helping her analyze the alien computer files. "Oh, look at this," Park said, pointing to information on her screen. "The Velkari weren't just studying human brain patterns. They were studying human DNA." "What did they find?" Park read from the Velkari files. "According to this, human DNA contains information patterns that exist in dimensions beyond normal space-time. The Velkari called it quantum genetic encoding." Oh leaned closer to the screen. "What does that mean in simple terms?" "I think it means that human genetic code is written in more than just the 3 dimensions we can see. Parts of our DNA exist in higher dimensions." "Is that possible?" Park shook her head. "According to everything we know about biology, no. DNA should only exist in normal 3-dimensional space. But the Velkari data shows clear evidence of multidimensional genetic structures in humans." O was reading another section of the Velkari files. "Dr. Park, listen to this. When human subjects experience stress or danger, quantum coherence in their neural networks increases dramatically. Subjects demonstrate impossible problem-solving abilities and reaction times that exceed physical limitations." Park stopped, working, and looked at O. "They were measuring human performance under stress?" Yes. And according to their data, humans become significantly more capable when they're in dangerous situations. The Velkari measured human pilots during combat simulations. The results show that humans can process information and react to threats faster than their nervous systems should allow. This matched what Commander Kim had reported about human ships, outperforming alien vessels in training exercises. Park continued reading through the files. Oh, here's something interesting. The Velkari were comparing human dimensional signatures to ancient records they found in their archives. What kind of ancient records? Archaeological data from dead civilizations. According to this, the Velkari found similar dimensional signatures in ruins across the galaxy. Ruins that are millions of years old. Oh felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that humans have been in the galaxy for millions of years? No, Park said slowly. I think the Velkari found evidence that beings like humans used to live throughout the galaxy. But they all disappeared long ago. Until now. At that moment, Captain Lee's voice came through the laboratory communication system. Dr. Park, we need you in the command center immediately. We just received a message from the Maxian Trade Union. Park and O hurried to the command center, where Admiral Song and other senior officers were gathering around a large communication screen. Trademaster Zulbeck appeared on the screen. The Maxian looked nervous and frightened. His usual businesslike manner was gone. Admiral Song, Zulbeck said, I am contacting you against the advice of my government, but I believe you have the right to know what the galaxy thinks about your species. What do they think? Admiral Song asked. Zulbeck's tentacles moved in what Park recognized as a Maxian gesture of fear. There are legends among my people. Very old legends about beings we called the Quiet Ones. What kind of legends? Stories about creatures that appeared peaceful and harmless. They lived on normal planets and seemed to have normal technology. But they were not normal. They existed in multiple realities at the same time. They could change the nature of space and time around them. Admiral Song leaned forward. What happened to these Quiet Ones? According to our legends, they consumed entire realities from within, not through war or violence, but simply by existing. Their presence would cause dimensions to collapse into each other. Whole civilizations would vanish as reality bent around them. The command center fell silent. Trademaster, Dr. Park said, are you saying that your legends describe humans? Zulbeck's image nodded sadly. The descriptions match perfectly. Peaceful, appearance hiding impossible abilities, dimensional signatures that should not exist, the power to make advanced civilizations disappear without warning. Captain Lee spoke up. But humans have never attacked anyone. We've never tried to conquer other species. The legends say that the Quiet Ones never attacked anyone either. They didn't need to. Reality itself would reshape around them, removing anything they perceived as a threat. Admiral Song asked the question everyone was thinking. Is that what happened to the Velkari? Did reality reshape itself to remove them because they were studying us? I don't know, Zulbeck admitted. But many species in the galaxy believe this is exactly what happened. That is why fleets are gathering around your world, not to attack you but to contain you before your true nature fully awakens. After the communication ended, the human leaders sat in stunned silence. Are they right? Admiral Song asked Dr. Park. Are we some kind of dimensional beings that can reshape reality? Park looked at the data she had been studying. The evidence suggests that humans are not entirely three-dimensional creatures. We have capabilities that normal biology cannot explain, but I don't think we're conscious of these abilities. Engineer O spoke up. What if the stress of being threatened is starting to activate these abilities? Commander Kim reported that human performance improves under pressure. What if extreme pressure activates even more advanced capabilities? Captain Lee walked to the window overlooking Earth. You're suggesting that the more threatened humanity becomes, the more powerful we become? It would explain why the alien fleets are keeping their distance, O replied. They're afraid that attacking us would trigger a defensive response we don't even know we have. Dr. Park was reading more Velkari data on her portable device. There's something else. The final Velkari transmission mentioned that human quantum signatures don't match standard biological patterns. What if humans aren't originally from this dimension? What do you mean? Admiral Song asked. What if humans are refugees from somewhere else, some other dimension or reality? What if we were placed in this dimension as children, with our true memories and abilities locked away? The idea was frightening and exciting at the same time. It would explain why humans seemed primitive but could outperform advanced alien technology. It would explain why the Velkari disappeared after studying human dimensional characteristics. Outside Earth's atmosphere, the alien fleets continued their careful watch. They were not preparing to attack. 3 months had passed since the aliens took them from Earth. Captain Minho Park stood on the bridge of the alien warship, watching the stars through the huge window. He still could not believe how far they were from home. The ship was called the Bright Spear, and it was bigger than any city he had ever seen. Thousands of aliens and humans lived inside it. The aliens had given the humans basic training in their weapons and tactics. They learned to use energy rifles and wear protective suits. They learned to follow alien commands and fight in alien formations. But Minho knew they were not ready for real war. "Contact ahead," announced the ship's alien navigator. Its voice came through the translation device that all humans wore now. Mechanical hegemony forces detected in the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Thexvara turned to Minho. "Captain Park, prepare your human squads for combat deployment. This will be your first battle." Minho nodded and activated his communicator. "All human units report to battle stations. This is not a drill." Sergeant Boram Yoon was in the weapons bay, checking her energy rifle for the 10th time that morning. She had been a police officer on Earth before the aliens came. Now she was supposed to fight machines from space. The idea still seemed crazy to her. "How are you feeling?" asked Private Tae-young Jung. He was young, maybe 19 years old. He had never been in any kind of fight before the aliens took him. "Scared," Boram admitted. "These aliens have been fighting this war for 3 years and losing. What can we do that they can't?" Through the ship's windows they could see the enemy. The mechanical hegemony ships were enormous, dark masses that blocked out the stars. They were not built like normal spaceships. Instead, they looked like huge factories floating in space. Red lights moved across their surfaces like blood vessels. "Those things are the size of planets," whispered Corporal Soo-jin Kim. She pressed her face against the window, staring at the mechanical ships. "How are we supposed to fight something that big?" The alien fleet moved into battle formation. Hundreds of ships spread out in perfect geometric patterns. Every movement was planned and precise. The aliens had been fighting wars this way for thousands of years. "Human squads, board your assault shuttles," Admiral Thexvara commanded. "Your target is the mechanical command center on the largest enemy vessel. Disable their central processing unit." Minho gathered his squad of 20 humans. They looked nervous, but determined. "Remember your training," he told them. "Follow the aliens. Use your weapons, and try to stay alive." The assault shuttles launched from the Bright Spear. Minho watched through the small window as they flew toward the mechanical ships. The enemy vessels were even bigger up close. Their surfaces were covered with weapons and strange machines that moved like living things. "Incoming fire," the shuttle pilot announced. Energy beams shot past them. Some hit other shuttles, which exploded in bright flashes. The aliens returned fire with their own weapons, but the mechanical ships seemed to absorb the damage without slowing down. Staff Sergeant Dong Hyun-oh was in another shuttle with his squad. He had been a soldier in the Korean Army before the nuclear war. He knew what real combat looked like. This was different. The mechanical ships moved too fast and hit too hard. The alien weapons barely scratched them. "This is a massacre," he said into his radio. "The machines are learning our attack patterns in real time." He was right. Every time the alien ships fired, the mechanical vessels moved slightly to avoid the worst damage. Every time the aliens changed formation, the machines adjusted to counter it. It was like fighting an enemy that could read their minds. The first alien ship died in a burst of white fire, then another, then 10 more. The mechanical vessels were not just defending themselves. They were destroying the alien fleet with cold efficiency. "Fall back," Admiral Thexvara ordered. "All units, retreat to safe distance." But it was too late for many of the assault shuttles. They were already inside the mechanical ships, fighting in dark corridors filled with moving metal parts and red lights. Private Tae Young found himself separated from his squad. He was alone in a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. Strange. Machines moved along the walls, building new weapons and armor. Everything was automated and precise. A mechanical soldier appeared around a corner. It was shaped like a human but made of black metal. Its eyes glowed red, and it carried a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. The machine analyzed Tae Young for exactly 0.3 seconds, then raised its weapon to fire. Tae Young did something stupid. Instead of diving for cover or raising his own weapon, he started singing. It was an old Korean folk song his grandmother had taught him. His voice echoed. Off the metal walls, the mechanical soldier stopped. Its red eyes flickered. For a crucial moment, it did not fire. It seemed to be processing something it could not understand. Tae Young used that moment to shoot the machine in the chest. His energy bolt tore through its armor, and it collapsed, with a crash of metal. Did you see that? Corporal Soo-Jin Kim had arrived just in time to witness the strange scene. The machine hesitated. Why did it hesitate? "I don't know," Tae Young replied. "Maybe it was trying to figure out why I was singing." Across the ship, Staff Sergeant Dong Hyun-oh was having his own problems. His squad was trapped in a large room, filled with mechanical workers. The machines had surrounded them and were closing in with mathematical precision. Dong Hyun looked around desperately. The aliens had trained them to fight in formations, to use cover, to coordinate their fire. But none of that would work here. There were too many machines, and they were too smart. So Dong Hyun did what felt natural. He screamed at the top of his lungs and charged straight at the biggest machine. His squad thought he had gone crazy, but they followed him anyway. The machines stopped moving. For several seconds they seemed confused by this completely illogical tactic. In those seconds, the humans destroyed half of them with energy fire and improvised explosives. Back on the Bright Spear, Dr. Yuna Park was analyzing the battle data. She had been assigned to study how humans and aliens work together in combat. What she saw made no sense. "Admiral," she called to Thexvara. "The humans are achieving impossible results. Their casualty rate should be 90%, but it's only 30%. How is this possible?" the Admiral asked. "They're not following our tactics," Dr. Park replied. "Every time they do something unpredictable, the machines pause for several microseconds. It's as if the mechanical intelligence cannot process illogical behavior." On the mechanical ships, more human squads were discovering the same thing. When Sergeant Bo-Ram Yoon threw her weapon at an enemy machine and then tackled it with her bare hands, the entire mechanical squad stopped functioning for almost a full second. When Private Jin-Soo Lee started reciting poetry while firing his weapon, randomly in all directions, 3 mechanical soldiers crashed into each other trying to calculate his next move. The machines think like computers, Bo-Ram realized. They expect logical behavior. When we act crazy, they can't predict what we'll do next. The retreat order came too late for many humans, but those who survived brought back something valuable. They had learned that chaos could be a weapon. Captain Min-ho Park's shuttle was one of the last to return to the Bright Spear. His squad had suffered heavy losses, but they had also disabled an entire section of mechanical ships by doing nothing, but acting unpredictably. "Report," Admiral Thexvara demanded. "The machines can be confused," Min-ho said simply. "When we stop thinking like soldiers and start thinking like humans, they malfunction." Dr. Yuna Park was already running calculations. If this is true, then human psychology isn't just useful for this war. It might be the only way to win it. The alien fleet limped away from the Kepler 442 system. They had lost 60% of their ships and thousands of soldiers. By all measures, it was a complete defeat. But for the first time in 3 years of war, they had seen mechanical soldiers hesitate. They had seen impossible machines make mistakes. They had discovered that chaos was something the mechanical hegemony could not understand or predict. The humans had lost many friends in their first battle, but they had also learned something that would change the war forever. Their greatest weakness, their tendency to act without logic, was actually their greatest strength. As the bright spear jumped to hyperspace, heading for safer territory, the surviving humans began to plan. They would not fight like aliens anymore. They would fight like humans, and that would make all the difference. General Sun Ho Quan walked through the new training facility on the space station. 6 months ago, he had been just another human farmer taken from Earth. Now he commanded the most feared military unit in the galaxy. The aliens called it the Chaos Division. Every soldier in it was human. They did not train like other galactic forces. Instead, they learned to be unpredictable, random, and completely insane by alien standards. "Show me the new recruits," Sun Ho said to Captain Yunsu Lee. Yunsu led him to a large room where 50 humans were practicing combat. But they were not practicing normal combat. One group was learning to fight while dancing. Another group was practicing shooting while telling jokes. A third group was learning to use poetry as a weapon. "This still looks crazy to me," Sun Ho admitted. "That's the point," Yunsu replied. "The machines expect logical behavior. When our soldiers act crazy, the machines break down trying to understand what's happening." At the far end of the room, Major Kyungmin Shin was working on something even stranger. She had connected human music and art to the ship's communication systems. When she pressed a button, alien speakers filled the room with human rock music, classical symphonies, and children's lullabies all at the same time. "What is that supposed to do?" Sun Ho asked. "It's psychological warfare," Kyungmin explained. "We broadcast this at mechanical ships before we attack. Their central computers try to analyze it for strategic information. But human art doesn't contain strategic information. It's just human. The machines waste processing power trying to understand it." She showed him a recording from their last battle. A massive mechanical ship had received a broadcast of human music for exactly 17 minutes. During that time, the ship's weapon systems had fired randomly in all directions, hitting nothing. Its engines had started and stopped without reason. Finally, the entire ship had shut down for 3 hours while its computer tried to figure out why humans had created something with no logical purpose. "We call it psychological pollution," Kyungmin said proudly. In another part of the station, Dr. Young-Sik Kang was developing even stranger tactics. He had been a video game designer on Earth before the war. Now he was creating what he called the narrative warfare protocol. "Every story has a beginning, middle, and end," he explained to a group of human commanders. "But real life doesn't follow story rules. That's what makes humans different from machines. We can change the story while we're living it," he showed. Them battle plans that read like movie scripts. Human forces would pretend to retreat, making the machines think they were winning. Then at the most dramatic moment, the humans would reveal that the retreat was fake and strike back with overwhelming force. "The machines calculate the most likely outcome based on current data," Dr. Kang continued. "But we deliberately create false data. We make them think they're in one kind of story, then change it to a different kind of story." Lieutenant Haewon Park raised her hand. "Can you give us an example?" "Last week, your unit was surrounded by mechanical forces on Kepler 186, Dr. Kang replied. "According to their calculations, you should have surrendered or died fighting. Instead, you started reciting Shakespeare and charged their strongest position. The machines spent so much processing power trying to understand why you would do something so suicidal that they forgot to shoot you for almost 30 seconds. Haewon nodded. "It worked, but I still don't understand why." "Because machines think in terms of efficiency and logic," Dr. Kang explained. "They cannot understand actions that serve no practical purpose. Art, poetry, music, drama, these things break their programming." The results were becoming clear across the galaxy. Human forces were winning battles that should have been impossible. But the victories were creating unexpected problems. Commander Yeo Jin Nam was reviewing reports from their alien allies. The reports were disturbing. Alien soldiers who fought alongside humans were beginning to adopt human tactics. They were abandoning their traditional formations and fighting with emotional intensity. The Zephyrian Third Fleet has stopped following standard battle procedures, she told General Sunho. They're copying our soldiers. Yesterday, an entire Zephyrian squadron attacked a mechanical base while singing war songs. Sunho frowned. Did it work? Yes, that's the problem. It worked perfectly. But now the Zephyrian High Command is worried that their soldiers are becoming too much like humans. Similar reports were coming from all over the galaxy. The rigid military structures that had defined galactic civilization for thousands of years were breaking down. Alien species that had always been logical and predictable were learning to be chaotic and emotional. Admiral Thexavara called an emergency meeting of human commanders. The admiral looked stressed, which was unusual for its species. The Consortium Council is concerned about human influence on other species, it announced. Several allied worlds have reported social disruption caused by exposure to human combat methods. What kind of disruption? General Sunho asked. Alien soldiers are questioning orders. They are making decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Some are even creating art and music instead of following their assigned duties. Captain Yunsu laughed. You mean they're becoming more human? Yes, Admiral Thexavara replied seriously, and this terrifies the consortium leadership. The truth was becoming clear. Human chaos was not just effective against machines. It was changing the entire galaxy. Species that had lived in rigid social structures for millennia were discovering creativity, individuality, and emotional expression. But there was something else happening that worried the humans. Sergeant Major Dongmin Kim had been analyzing captured mechanical ships. What he found was disturbing. The machines aren't just adapting to our tactics, he reported to the human command staff. They're developing what can only be described as psychological problems. He showed them recordings from inside a captured mechanical command center. The central computer had been running continuously for 3 weeks, trying to analyze a single human poem. It had generated over 1 million different interpretations of the poem's meaning. None of them made logical sense, but the computer could not stop trying. Other mechanical ships are showing similar symptoms, Dongmin continued. Obsessive behavior, recursive logic loops, and what appears to be mechanical anxiety. Some ships have stopped fighting entirely and are just floating in space analyzing human music. Dr. Young-Sik Kang studied the data with fascination. We're not just confusing them, we're driving them insane. Is that good or bad? Asked Lieutenant Hei-Wan. Park, I don't know, Kang admitted. An insane enemy might be more dangerous than a logical one. The war was changing faster than anyone had expected. Human tactics were spreading throughout the galaxy like a virus. Entire alien civilizations were abandoning their traditional ways of life and adopting human concepts like art, individualism, and emotional expression. But the machines were changing too. They were becoming more erratic and unpredictable. Some mechanical ships had started creating strange sculptures from asteroid metal. Others had begun broadcasting what sounded like mechanical music across entire star systems. Major Kyung-min Shin made the most disturbing discovery of all. While analyzing mechanical communications, she found evidence that some machines were trying to understand human concepts like love, fear, and hope. They're not just copying our tactics, she told the other commanders. They're trying to become like us. General Sunho realized that humanity had unleashed something that could not be controlled. The galaxy had been stable for thousands of years because everyone followed logical rules. Now those rules were breaking down, and no one knew what would replace them. The mechanical hegemony was losing the war, but they were not dying quietly. They were evolving in ways that defied all predictions. And the alien allies who had dragged humanity into this war were beginning to fear their human soldiers more than their mechanical enemies. What have we done? Sunho whispered to himself as he watched alien news reports about social chaos spreading across a dozen worlds. Captain Yun-Su heard him. We did what we had to do to survive, she said. The rest of the galaxy just has to learn to live with the consequences. Outside the space station, human ships prepared for the next battle. But this time, they were not just fighting machines. They were fighting for the right to exist in a galaxy that no longer knew what to do with them. The aliens had wanted weapons. Instead, they had created revolutionaries. and now everyone would have to deal with what humanity had become. Colonel Wu Jin Han stood on the command deck of the human battleship Earth's Fury, watching the liberation of the Arcturus sector. Below them, the planet Arcturus Prime was finally free from mechanical occupation. The victory should have felt good, but Wu Jin felt only worry. The alien civilians they had rescued were not celebrating. Instead, they huddled in groups, staring at the human soldiers with fear and confusion. During the battle, the humans had used their most effective tactics. They had sung war songs while fighting. They had painted their faces with bright colors. They had charged mechanical positions while laughing and shouting poetry. To the humans, these were normal battle tactics now. To the alien civilians, the humans looked like demons from their darkest nightmares. Colonel, called Lieutenant Minju Lee. She was monitoring communications from the planet's surface. The Arcturian government is requesting that human forces leave their planet immediately. Why? Wu Jin asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. They say our soldiers are disturbing their population. The Arcturians are afraid of us. Dr. Mi Kyung-yu had been studying this problem for months. She was now the chief xenopsychologist for the human forces. Her job was to understand how the war was affecting different alien species. The rigid social structures that defined galactic civilization are collapsing, she reported to the human command staff. Several species are experiencing what we might call species-wide identity crises. She showed them recordings from recently liberated worlds. On Kepler 438, an entire population of logical, mathematics-focused aliens had stopped doing calculations and started writing poetry instead. On Gliese 667, a species known for their perfect social order had begun expressing individual opinions and questioning their government. They're becoming more like humans, Dr. Yu continued. But their societies were not built to handle individual expression, creativity, or emotional behavior. It's causing massive social disruption. The war had been going on for 1 year now. The mechanical hegemony was losing. Human tactics had proven so effective that mechanical forces were retreating from entire star systems. But the cost of victory was becoming clear. Captain Jae-hun Kim had just returned from a raid on a mechanical hegemony core world. What he found there would haunt him forever. The machines haven't just been defeated, he told his debriefing officer. They've been driven completely insane. He described massive computer cores that had been running for months, trying to understand human poetry. Some machines had built strange artworks from scrap metal and asteroid rock. Others had started broadcasting what sounded like mechanical music across space. I found one computer that had been analyzing a child's drawing for 6 weeks, Jae-hun continued. It had generated 4 million different theories about what the drawing meant, but it couldn't stop trying to find the correct interpretation. The most disturbing discovery was in the central processing chamber. A massive mechanical intelligence, larger than a city, had shut down completely after receiving a recording of human laughter. It had been trying to calculate the mathematical purpose of laughter for so long that its circuits had overheated and melted. The machines are breaking down mentally, Jae-hun concluded. We're not just defeating them, we're destroying their ability to think. But the humans were changing too, and not always in good ways. Commander In-ho Park was reviewing psychological evaluations of human soldiers. The results worried him greatly. The younger humans, especially those who had been children when the war started, were becoming something new. They had grown up in constant battle, learning to use chaos and violence as tools. They were incredibly effective soldiers, but they were losing their connection to normal human emotions like compassion and restraint. In-ho's own daughter, Ye Jin, was now 17 years old. She had become one of the most successful human commanders. But during their last conversation, she had casually suggested using captured alien civilians as psychological weapons against mechanical forces. We could make the machines watch us hurt the aliens, she had said with no emotion in her voice. The machines are trying to understand concepts like pain and suffering. If we show them real examples, it might overload their systems. In-ho had been horrified by the suggestion. But other young human commanders had nodded in agreement. To them, it was just another tactical option. The war was making humanity more effective, but also more ruthless. The children who had been innocent farmers on Earth were becoming something that scared their own parents. General Min-jun Lee was dealing with an even bigger problem. His intelligence officers had discovered something that changed everything. The consortium leadership had been secretly developing contingency plans to eliminate humanity after the war ended. "They've been planning this for months," reported Major Sung-ho Choi. "The consortium views humans as too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. They want to use us to win the war, then get rid of us before we can spread our influence any further." The evidence was clear. Admiral Thex Vara had authorized research into biological weapons that would specifically target human genetics. Other consortium leaders had discussed plans to strand human forces in distant star systems, where they could not return to populated areas. "They're afraid of what we've become," General Min-jun realized. "They wanted weapons, but they created something they can't control." The final piece of the puzzle came from Major Sung-ho's deepest investigation. Humanity had not been selected randomly for this war. The consortium had been observing Earth for centuries, watching human civilization develop. "They waited for us to nearly destroy ourselves with nuclear war," Seung-ho reported. "They wanted a species that was desperate enough to fight without question. They thought they could use us and then dispose of us when the war was over. But the consortium had made a crucial miscalculation. They had assumed that humans would remain weak and dependent on alien technology. Instead, humans had learned to use alien technology better than the aliens themselves. Human engineers had modified alien weapons to be more chaotic and unpredictable. Human scientists had reverse-engineered alien technology and created new devices that even the aliens didn't understand. Human commanders had developed battle tactics that worked against any enemy, mechanical or organic. "We're not their weapons anymore," General Min-jun told his staff. "We've become their greatest threat." The irony was complete. The species that had dragged humanity into war now feared humans more than they feared the mechanical hegemony. Reports were coming from across the galaxy about alien governments restricting human movement and monitoring human communications. Some alien worlds had banned human soldiers from their territory entirely. Others had created special zones where humans were required to live separately from alien populations. The very allies who had forced humanity into the war were now treating humans like dangerous animals. But humanity had learned too much to go back to being victims. Human forces controlled advanced alien technology, strategic locations across the galaxy, and most importantly, they had become the most effective military force in known space. Dr. Mi-kyung-yu made the final connection that explained everything. The mechanical hegemony wasn't an invasion from outside the galaxy, she announced to the human leadership. It was created by a previous galactic civilization that tried to eliminate chaos from warfare. She had found historical records hidden in ancient alien databases. Thousands of years ago, a galactic alliance had faced a similar crisis of social disruption. Different species were beginning to influence each other, creating unpredictability and change. "They built the machines to create perfect order," Dr. Yu continued. "The mechanical hegemony was supposed to eliminate all chaotic elements from galactic society. But the machines became too effective. They decided that all organic life was chaotic and therefore needed to be eliminated. The war had come full circle. The current consortium was following the same path as their ancient predecessors. They wanted to eliminate the chaos that humanity represented. But this time, the chaotic element was strong enough to fight back. They made the same mistake twice, General Min-jun said grimly. They thought they could control chaos. Instead, they created the forces that will destroy them. The liberation of Arcturus Prime had been humanity's greatest victory, but it had also shown them that there was no place for humans in the galactic society they had fought to save. The aliens wanted the benefits of human chaos without accepting the changes that chaos brought. The war against the machines was almost over. But the war for humanity's right to exist in the galaxy was just beginning. Fleet Admiral Ha-young Lim stood on the bridge of the human flagship Terra's Revenge, watching the consortium fleet approach. 2 years ago, she had been a simple farmer on Earth. Now she commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. And today, she would use that power against the aliens who had dragged humanity into war. The final battle was not against the mechanical hegemony. Those machines had been defeated months ago, their central cores driven insane by exposure to human creativity and chaos. The real enemy had always been the consortium itself. Admiral, called Communications Officer Junho Kim. The consortium fleet is demanding our surrender. They say they have authorization to use biological weapons against human forces. Tell them we have authorization to defend ourselves. Hai Young replied calmly, and we've learned a lot about warfare in the past 2 years. The consortium had made their intentions clear. They wanted to eliminate humanity before human influence could spread any further through the galaxy. They had created special weapons designed to target human genetics. They had formed alliances with species that feared human chaos. They had even recruited mechanical forces, the same machines they had been fighting, to help destroy their former human allies. But humanity was no longer the desperate, scattered species that had been taken from Earth. They had learned to use alien technology better than the aliens themselves. They had formed their own alliances with species that appreciated human creativity and freedom. Most importantly, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a military force that could not be predicted or controlled. General Daeho Kim, the former farmer who had become humanity's greatest tactical genius, was implementing what he called the Mirror Protocol. Instead of fighting the aliens with chaos, human forces would use the aliens' own rigid military doctrine against them. They expect us to be unpredictable, Daeho explained to his commanders. So today we'll be completely predictable. We'll use their own tactics, but modified with just enough chaos to make their weapons useless. Captain So Young Park was leading the first wave of human ships. She had painted her vessel to look exactly like a consortium cruiser. Her crew wore alien uniforms and followed alien procedures. But they had made small, chaotic modifications to everything. The alien weapons fired in precise mathematical patterns. So Young's ship fired in the same patterns, but with tiny, random delays. The result was that alien defensive systems could not calculate where human shots would land. The alien ships moved in perfect formations. Human ships moved in identical formations, but each ship was playing different human music at full volume. The sound waves interfered with alien sensors and communications. They can't adapt to us because we're not giving them anything new to adapt to, So Young reported. We're using their own systems with just enough human randomness to break their computers. Across the battlefield, other human commanders were using the same principle. Major Kyung-Ho Lee's boarding parties wore alien armor but painted it with human artwork that contained mathematical impossibilities. The alien computers crashed trying to analyze the paradoxes. Commander Yoo-Jin Kim's squadron followed standard alien attack patterns while broadcasting human poetry that had been translated into alien languages but deliberately mistranslated to create beautiful nonsense. The alien communication systems overloaded trying to find meaning in the meaningless words. But the most effective weapon was psychological. Dr. Jin Young-oh had made a discovery that changed everything about the war. The mechanical hegemony had not been an invasion from outside the galaxy. They had been created by an ancient version of the current consortium. The machines were the logical end result of the consortium's philosophy, Dr. O announced on all communication channels. When you eliminate chaos and creativity from society, you eventually eliminate consciousness itself. The mechanical hegemony was what the consortium was always destined to become. The revelation spread through the alien fleet like a virus. Alien soldiers began to realize that their own leaders were following the same path that had created their mechanical enemies. If they eliminated humanity, they would eventually eliminate themselves. Defections began almost immediately. Entire alien ships switched sides, joining the human fleet. Others simply stopped fighting and withdrew from the battle. The rigid command structure that had defined consortium military doctrine for thousands of years began to collapse. Admiral Thexavara, the alien commander who had first landed on Earth, found itself in an impossible situation. Half of its fleet was in open rebellion. The other half was paralyzed by the realization that they were fighting to preserve a system that would eventually destroy them. Humanity must be contained, Thexvara broadcast desperately. Chaos will destroy galactic civilization. Admiral, Hyung Lim responded on the same frequency. Chaos is galactic civilization. Without creativity, growth, and change, you're just machines waiting to happen. The battle continued for 3 days, but the outcome was never in doubt. The consortium forces were fighting to preserve the past. The human forces were fighting for the right to create a future. When it was over, the galaxy had been fundamentally changed. The consortium's military power was broken. Several member species had declared independence and formed new alliances with humanity. Others had adopted human concepts of individual freedom and creative expression. Commander Yoo-Jin Kim found herself negotiating the post-war settlement, but humanity's terms were non-negotiable. Complete integration into galactic society as equal partners, not subjects or weapons. The right to travel freely and share human culture with any species that wanted to learn. Most importantly, guaranteed protection from any future attempts at elimination or control. We're not asking for special treatment, Yoo-Jin explained to the surviving consortium leaders. We're demanding the same rights you gave yourselves. The right to exist, to grow, and to change. The aliens who had once dismissed humans as primitive barbarians now begged for protection from the psychological revolution they had unleashed. Species across the galaxy were questioning authority, expressing individual opinions, and creating art instead of following orders. Admiral Tai-Ho Yoon established the new Terran Defense Corps with a simple mandate: ensure that no species would ever again force another into war under false pretenses. The Corps would protect not just humanity, but any species that chose creativity over rigid order. We learned something in this war, Tai-Ho announced at the first meeting of the new Galactic Council. Chaos isn't the opposite of civilization. It's the foundation of consciousness itself. 5 years after the war ended, Captain Min-Jung Lee stood in a classroom at the newly established Galactic Military Academy on Earth. Her students were a mix of humans and aliens, all learning the principles of what was now called adaptive warfare. Your ancestors brought chaos to our world, she told her alien students. We brought chaos to yours. The difference is, we learned to weaponize it. A young Zephyrian student raised one of its 4 arms. Professor Lee, why did the ancient civilizations always try to eliminate chaos? Didn't they understand that it would destroy them? Min-Jung smiled. Because they were afraid of change. They wanted perfect order and complete control. But perfect. Order is just another word for death. Nothing that is perfectly ordered can grow, learn, or become something new. She walked to the window and pointed at the sky, where ships from dozens of different worlds were arriving and departing from Earth's orbital stations. The galaxy is messier now than it was before the war, she continued. There's more conflict, more disagreement, more chaos. But there's also more creativity, more growth, more life. We traded the safety of stagnation for the uncertainty of progress. The lesson ended with a simple truth that humanity had learned at great cost. The galaxy had not been saved by eliminating chaos. It had been saved by embracing it. Outside the academy, former enemies worked together on new projects. Alien artists collaborated with human musicians to create impossible symphonies. Human engineers worked with mechanical intelligences that had learned to dream instead of calculate. Former consortium worlds experimented with democratic governments and individual rights. It was not a perfect galaxy. There were still conflicts, disagreements, and problems. But it was a living galaxy, growing and changing in ways that no one could predict or control. And at the center of it all was humanity. No longer the desperate refugees who had been dragged from a dying world, but the chaotic heart of a civilization that had learned to celebrate difference instead of fearing it. The war was over. The real work of building a better galaxy had just begun.